How much of your fate do you really control? Do you play the hand you've been dealt, or try to stack the deck to get better results? We're taking a quick peek at Hand of Fate 2. Hand of Fate 2 is an action, roguelike, card game, brawler, deck building amalgamation of all kinds of genres, developed by Defiant Development. It's their second fully released project on the PC and the sequel to 2015's Hand of Fate. Before that, Defiant was only really known for their iOS and Android games like Rocket Bunnies, Ski Safari, and Hero's Call. Most of these were small games without too much ambition to be much more, and Hero's Call doesn't seem to be available anymore. Hand of Fate is really where Defiant took off, not only in the realms of popularity, but with their own creativity with a rather unique concept. If you're new to the series, Hand of Fate pits its players up against a mysterious being known only as the Dealer. This mysterious fellow is a master of a little card game that revolves around the life of whomever the main character is. Honestly, the game's main character is never given any kind of name, title, or anything like that, really. The only thing shown off about them is their sweet mohawk hairdo, and that's about all you get. This Dealer has created cards based off of your past actions and challenges you to relive those events while also dealing with his own challenges in order to prove that you have what it takes to take fate into your own hands. The game is a roguelike or roguelite, however you want to phrase that genre, but not so in the normal sense. Every time players take on a challenge, they get the opportunity to stack the deck before the cards are shuffled and the game begins. Encounters, weapons, and supplies are all important things to keep track of, but the Dealer has some of his own he will add to the deck depending upon the challenge. Each level sets up a plethora of cards to work as a map, but there's no way to know what each card is till stepping on it. It could be a useful encounter with a helpful maiden to regain supplies, or it could be an all-out ambush to fight your way out of. Encounters vary greatly and only expand as the game progresses and players unlock new cards and new challenges to face. In the original game, there were two main kinds of encounters to keep an eye out for: combat encounters and dice card encounters. Dice card encounters would give players a set of 4 shuffled cards to pick from, varying from huge success to huge failure depending upon the situation. Whichever card was picked would determine the outcome of the encounter, be it good or bad. This is the part of the game that many people, including myself, really latched onto. Building different decks to combat different challenges while trying to draw the right card at the right time to get that much-needed outcome from an encounter is extremely satisfying. Managing health, gold, and food to make sure you stay alive and don't starve to death while making your way around the board, never sure what you'll come across, is rather addicting, and I found myself playing the original game quite a bit despite its flaws. Hand of Fate 2 expands on everything the first game did while attempting to fix one of its weaker aspects: its combat. Combat encounters play out in small, brawling sections while players take control of their character and use a free-flow combat system to deal with whatever faction they find themselves against. This free-flow combat system is extremely similar to the series that really popularized the whole trend, the Batman Arkham games. While Assassin's Creed technically did something like this first, having a combat system focused mostly on counterattacks and defensive maneuvers rather than pushing offensive tactics, Rocksteady's Arkham series and its combat system really expanded the idea into some satisfying gameplay, at least for a while. Over 4 Batman games and just way too many Assassin's Creed games, this style of combat has gotten stale and has shown its flaws time and time again. Neither series was able to keep the idea interesting all that much as they pumped out more and more titles, and other devs that have attempted this style of combat in their own games were never able to fully capture what made it work in the first place. Due to this, the free-flow system of combat has gotten really tiresome, and unfortunately, it's the style of combat Defiant decided to use for Hand of Fate. Defiant did do a decent job of implementing this kind of combat system, but it didn't really help make things all that interesting. In reality, most players, myself included, found this part of the game to be the weak link in the chain for Hand of Fate, and its card system was both more engaging and a lot more unique. Hand of Fate 2 attempts to fix this system with the addition of combo attacks and side characters to assist you in combat. Each type of weapon in the game, from swords to axes, has its own combo attack. Hitting enemies a specific amount of times without getting hit yourself will let you unleash these attacks. Weapons within different classifications can have their own combo attacks as well, so it's good to experiment and see what you come across. Hand of Fate 2 also uses finishing moves and supporting companions for brawls. If an enemy is at low health, you can quickly press the F key to finish them off in one large attack. Different types of enemies are more likely to cause this to happen, like the Corroded faction, but it really doesn't add all that much to the game. Supporting companions, on the other hand, are a bit more interesting. Throughout the game's levels, different important characters will join you on your journey. There are 4 of them in total, each one with their own individual encounter cards you could put in your deck, as well as the ability to join you in a fight and use their own special powers. One character may give you a magic shield to stop you from taking a little bit of damage, while another can stun a group of nearby enemies to try to give you the upper hand. These powers are limited, however, as they can only be activated when standing near whoever you brought with you. They also take time to recharge before they can be used again, and they can only be used if that character is still alive. Dead companions can be brought back to life rather easily and as many times as you need to, but their AI on their own is kinda, well, stupid. Many times they will blindly run into groups of enemies or attack enemies who are already dead instead of doing something actually useful. For the most part, they work well as a distraction, and the same goes for any encounter-specific support characters there may be. Some encounters will give you a batch of farmers or soldiers to work with, and they're just as bad as your normal companions when it comes to fighting. NPCs that can be used in combat isn't a bad idea, but it's just not implemented all that well, and mostly they end up being fodder. When it comes down to it, Hand of Fate 2's combat is still primarily button mashing. Press the attack button as fast as humanly possible while pressing the E key to block when an enemy turns green and pressing space to evade when an enemy turns red. I have noticed that many times I've told my character to block only for them to get hit anyway, which is rather annoying, but I chalk that up to my own inability to get the timing correct than an issue with the game. What is an issue with the game is when enemies manage to damage you when their attack is nowhere near you. That is rather obnoxious. For the most part, combat is just mindless and generally uninteresting, even though the game really tries to make it epic with all kinds of boss encounters just like the first game. The main draw is going to be the card encounters more than anything else with Hand of Fate 2, just like with Hand of Fate. So if you liked that part of the game, you're in for a good time. Card encounters have been expanded upon since the first game. While it had a level-by-level system, each ending with a specific boss fight, this time around, levels are more like quests or missions. One level may be hunting down relics for the Empire, while another could have you attempting to survive an assassin. There's a wide variety of things to do, each one with their own stipulations specific to that level. It makes it so players can't just use the exact same cards and techniques over and over and over again, and they really have to tailor their decks to fit the overall goal. Most levels have multiple goals to complete as well in order to unlock tokens for more cards. Completing both goals will gain you more cards and help unlock more levels, but it isn't required to do everything in order to complete a level. Defiant has also added to their games of chance from the original. Previously, the only minigame was the dice card shuffle thing, as well as some gauntlet challenges to run through. Now, the gauntlet challenges are gone in favor of more games of skill. Being successful or unsuccessful in an encounter could be up to dice cards, actually rolling dice, dealing with the Wheel of Fate, or attempting to complete a pendulum minigame. Out of all of these, the wheel is my least favorite as it seems a bit inconsistent. I can never quite get the timing to get the card I'm after. There's this invisible divisionary line between cards that determines which one the wheel lands on if it doesn't land on a card directly. Many times it seemed like I should have gotten one result only to end up with one card short or one card too far. Spinning wheel games like this usually have pins between each possible result or are color-coded so players can see exactly where the separation between one outcome is to another. Hand of Fate 2 just doesn't do this at all, and it's rather annoying. Regardless of those flaws, the card game mechanics of Hand of Fate 2 are just as good as they were in the first game, but now with even more cards and encounters to deal with. There's a whole new wide variety of things to come across with a bunch of new cards that weren't in the original game, and it's impossible for me to cover everything here. Overall, all I can say is if you enjoyed the original Hand of Fate and its card mechanics, you will probably also enjoy Hand of Fate 2. It expands on everything the previous game did and really attempts to fix all of its flaws while keeping what made the game work so well. Musically and graphically, the game is pretty much the same as the original, complete with its really awkward animations during combat sections. I mean, just look at that lady's face. What the heck is that expression? This time around, players can also customize their in-game character a bit to give them some individuality. It seems to be completely for aesthetic purposes and rather limited in options, but it's at least something. The dealer's voice actor also returns for this game, and it's just as good as ever.
Perhaps different arms would find you faring better, or more skills.
Defiant did a fantastic job in casting this character, and while he's not exactly the antagonist this time around, he still has a lot of snide remarks to send your way. One thing that I found kind of obnoxious is that during some Wheel of Fate encounters, he'll chastise your result even if it's one of the better results available. I mean, when all the options are bad, the least bad one is the best one, yet he still gives you crap for it, the mysterious jerk. Hand of Fate 2 is available on GOG.com as well as Steam for $29.99 US, with its soundtrack priced at $9.99. The game is still a very unique combination of ideas that are mostly executed well. If there ever is a third game in the series, I really hope the developers can figure out how to make the combat more interesting and satisfying, or just get rid of it altogether for something else. Still, I enjoyed my time and would highly recommend it. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think of the game or this video in the comments section. I'm MegapieMan, and I'll talk to you guys later. Want to see more quick peeks? Click on the video on the left for Canarium, a Lovecraftian-themed first-person horror game. Or click on the video on the right for Super Blood Hockey, a game that manages to make hockey even more violent than it already is.